Bluetooth disconnected.
Everybody, this is Garen with Dark Forge Light Productions. And also the intro music was Tyler Lyons of the Leo Project. He allowed us to use his music, so thank you very much for that. And so we're going to go ahead and recap on some of the things that we talked about. Hang on just a second. Hopefully it'll stretch. And uh-oh. Okay. Outstanding. Okay. Fantastic. There we go. So, we're going to go ahead and recap a little bit and talk about what we talked about on the last episode a little bit, kind of elaborate on some of those things. And I am not with it. There we go. We were talking about the overall picture and our perception of reality. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and then I'm going to get into my story a little bit because there was a suggestion that somebody had made, and I decided to take that and add it into the podcast. So when we look at reality, we see an overall image, and a lot of things go into this image. We look at the outlining, the color, things like that. And what this is it's the overall picture, our perception of reality. The lines that are in it, the black and white. You start off with that, and it's going to be just the basic facts. No opinions, just facts. And and when you start adding some colors to it, you get your emotional attachments, your anger, your passion, your love, things like that. You start coloring in that image. So I wanted to clarify a little bit about that because I didn't feel very well during that first episode, so I was kind of had kind of an issue, had to bail out all of a sudden. So another thing that I wanted to recap on was my theory of the Newton laws of motion in application to mental state. The three laws of motion: an object stays at rest, or an object at rest will stay at rest until otherwise acted upon. Um, Everything has an equal and opposite reaction, and what goes up must come down. Those things we could apply to mental health, and I'll kind of, as we go on and as I tell my story, I'll kind of feed into that because, again, love analogies. So, without further ado, I will be discussing my story now. And for the record, my mom, she raised me to be a very compassionate and kind person. Chock full of common sense, things like that. Um, you're gonna see precious little of that during the story, but we'll get to that. So I guess as good a time as any, we'll start in 2006. And I wish I could say that I was a good person at this period of time in my life. I was not. So 2006, I ended up getting married. That was my first marriage. Now, I've known this woman for a while. Ever since we were really young, we grew up on the same street. Um, I wish I could tell you what I liked about her to help color in that picture. I don't really remember a whole lot. Um, I do know that I liked her writing style, um, and I liked some of the qualities she possessed. Basic reasons why you would marry somebody. Um, we brought out the absolute worst in each other. Um, each one of each one of us kind of fed on our dark emotions and pulled the absolute worst out of each other. Um, I was a bit of a partier. I love to drink. Um, Not only that, but other substances as well. Uh, I did use quite a bit of controlled substances around that period of time. And as time goes on, I became an embarrassment. And a lot of people that know me now love to tell stories of those days. Me crawling into a tree half naked, falling out of it, things like that. I was a buffoon, an idiot, um, and a walking embarrassment. Um, and during the course of us being together, it got worse and worse. It was one of the roughest portions of my life. Um, I had no self control. I didn't have any discipline. Everything that I tried to do, I just bailed on. I hated it. And looking back, I get a taste in my mouth. Like I can't wash it out. I'm sitting here at 42, looking back at when I was 26, and I absolutely hated that person. I can't stand that person that I was. Um, Mistake after mistake was made. Um, I didn't understand life, and I didn't understand what being an adult meant at all. I didn't even know what I wanted to do with my life at that point in time. Um, just party. That's all I wanted to do. Um, Pretty much anything that I could get my hands on. And the worse I got, the worse she got, the worse we got. Um, it- to the point where um, people were stepping out on the marriage. Uh, that being said, it took a while. It took a while to get there for me. I didn't understand the value of an intimate relationship. And I'll get more into that here in a second. Um, we were that toxic couple that when we showed up and everybody's trying to have a good time, we might just start a fight um, out of out of nowhere for no reason. Um, just yelling at each other, degrading each other. There's a lot of emasculation on her end to me. Um, it was very toxic. And sorry, this sucks for me to talk about. As time goes on, um, I love this person. Again, I can't explain to you why. Because nobody in our life looked at us like we loved each other. Not a one. But I did know that I wanted to keep her. And it's very hard to do that when she keeps comparing you to other people. And my sense of self value was just utterly shot. Um, I didn't think I was worth anything. And I mean, not only that, I didn't. Half the time, I didn't have a job. Um, I was pretty worthless, to be honest. Um, Lived in government housing. Um, The more she stepped out, the angrier I got. The more worthless I felt, the angrier I got. And eventually, I decided, you know, it's hard to break a rule when that rule doesn't exist. So an agreement was made, and not to go into too much detail about that, permissions were granted. And I thought, for sure, that'll put a band-aid on things. It's hard to be angry about something I said was okay. Um, and we kept going. We went for 6 years. 6 years after that. More drugs, more drinking. Um, I'd wake up on a Tuesday afternoon in my own fluid on the kitchen floor. It wasn't what I thought life would be at 26. I absolutely hated everything. Thinking back about it, I don't even know how I woke up every morning, um, and thought life was going to be okay. It's just nothing but pure chaos. Um, None of my friends respected me. Um, my best friend constantly just overstepped boundaries, um, and I just was like, "That's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's okay." And eventually, neither one of us liked where we were at. So we separated. I was completely destroyed. Of course, I blamed her, and her rising body count against me. Um, Never once looking at the mirror about maybe I could have done something a little bit different to change things. Um, and it got worse. Um, I ended up moving in with my mom. Um, I had a job, but for the life of me, I can't. None of my thought process was even there. I absolutely hated myself and just kept drinking. I dyed my hair black. I was emo as hell. And I missed her. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I stopped eating. Um, Lost, I believe it was 22 pounds in 3 weeks. And I felt like I had to go on. I just didn't know how. Um, and as time goes on and I started just self evaluating, I understood a couple things. I still didn't get it though. Um, Once I figured out that I hated myself and that I was a completely self destructive person, things did not get better because I tried to one up myself. Generally, when I'm going through something, I try not to drink because of what I just said. I'm very self destructive when if I'm going through anything, even if I'm not aware that I'm going through something and I start drinking, I will turn completely self destructive. And sometimes that's been a clue that, hey, something in my life's not right. Um, I'm going to have to figure something out here. uh, that be that as it may, I ended up getting a DUI, as a police officer, no less. So that was great. Um, I had to call my mom and let her know, hey, because at that point in time, I thought I was doing great. Um, I I don't need her. Um, Thought I was doing fantastic. When that DUI hit, I realized maybe I need help. Um, I'm not. I'm not doing as well as I thought I was. And everybody's like, yeah, no kidding. We know. I'm like, well, I'm kind of wishing you would tell somebody that. At this point in time, another family member was going through some things, and they found themselves in a bad place. Um, my mother and I, we sat down and discussed going to go get him, and pulling him out of his area, and that's what we did, and got him to move in, and there for a while everything was fine, with the exception of I was really worried about him. He's really young, and what he went through was a lot. I stopped focusing on myself, and I started focusing on him, taking him to concerts, taking him to the local store that we like to walk around and check out stuff, and just constantly tried to make sure he's okay, without ever once checking in with myself. And as time went on, I got worse and worse, um, to where a decision on my end was made, and I'm not gonna lie, it was a bad spot. I was ready to end it, and I sat there, and I said to myself, you know, one moment's courage and it's done. It's a quote from Dracula, by the way. All I needed was one moment's courage, 1 second, and I don't have to look at the disappointment on my mom's face when I do all the things that she tells me to stop doing. I don't have to worry about the younger kids in our family looking up at me and thinking that I'm complete garbage. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about my best friend overstepping his boundaries. I don't have to worry about living without my wife, who doesn't want to be around me. Just 1 second, and that's all I need. And it'll be over. It'll be done. And then I thought, what an idiotic thought. That was just for real dumb. My mom would beat, and I don't know if this will get moderated or not, or whatever, but my mom would beat my ass if she could see inside my brain at this particular moment. What an asinine ideology. How cowardice. The problem is me. It's not anybody else. This isn't being done to me. The problem's me. Who got a DUI? Me. Who was drunk on a Tuesday in the middle of my kitchen? Me. Who keeps drinking? Me. None of this is a surprise. So stop. Just stop it. And in a moment, everything clicked into place. I saw the entire world as it should be. I accidentally just removed all that color that was clouding that picture, and I just saw the black and white. If you want to change something, change it. That's what I was raised to do. If I was unhappy with something, change it. Sounds pretty easy. That color is what gets in the way. All these emotional attachments and these bonds and these things that just cloud our judgment. It is pretty easy. In fact, I think I will. I'll change it. And unfortunately, in this point in time, somebody came running back to me. I did a lot of changing. I stopped drinking, um, heavily, at any rate. I started to learn control. And when I got back up on my feet, and when I started to understand what my issue was and what my problems are. It was life changing. I started looking back at all of my drug experiences, all of what I was like when I was a complete dirtbag. And I took all that information and I started applying it to my job because I could think how the other side thinks. And not once did it occur to me that that might be useful. Not once. I immediately hit the ground running. I started studying more body language. I started studying more psychology. I started to really look at the inmates. I started to watch them. I started to evaluate them. I started to see how they walked, how they talked. And in 2 years' time, no, sorry, I misspoke. It took me 2 years to become the assistant jail administrator. Now at that point in time, I had to sit down and talk with the sheriff about my issues, which he was very happy that uh, I went to his house and I'm like, "Hey, bud, I messed up," and that was a big point for me as well. I had to sit down and look him in the eye and tell him that I made a mistake. That I mean, I don't know if you want me employed here anymore, but I went out and I got drunk and drove around to where I got pulled over and arrested by another agency. He listened to me and he said, "Yeah, you're in a bit of a spot. However, you're really good at your job," which I'm not 100% sure if he was even aware of what my name was at that point. I was a pretty quiet employee, but he said, "Don't worry about your job. Get a handle on your stuff." He did not say stuff though. So that's where I started double downing and exploring what I was actually good at. Um, I started exploring my people skills. I started figuring out everything that makes an inmate an inmate. I read a couple books, one of which being the Games That Criminals Play. It was a really good book. After I became the assistant jail administrator, I worked harder, and I started making that climb up the ladder. I eventually got promoted to the actual jail administrator. I took over the jail, all the operations of it, and I was still with the same person. Um, Now I made changes. Um, I changed my whole dynamic and threw every bit of me into my work. Um, but we got more and more distant because the intimacy was completely gone. And I didn't understand sex versus intimacy at all. I didn't get it. I had no clue. When looking back at that, did not understand that concept at all and how different the two are at all. Not a clue. Um, and I noticed that no matter how much I changed, I couldn't change another person. And still doing things that we did, eventually I ended up stepping out as well. Um, I understood. I absolutely hated my relationship. I hated where I lived. I hated that my work life was excelling so much, and my home life was just a catastrophe. Um, we ended up taking one of her relatives in. He's trying to get back to good. He was doing drugs, things like that. He went to rehab. He came out of rehab and wanted to stay with us. We lived in a totally different county, one where you could do handyman projects and actually excel at things if you're good at with your hands. He was good with cars, good with building things. So he's gonna do odd jobs and start changing his life. Day two of him living with us, he said he was gonna go outside and smoke, and he disappeared. He's gone. I tapped her. I'm like, "Hey, your brother. He's gone. He gone. I have no idea where he's at. He's been gone for like 45 minutes." We ended up finding him at a trap house down the road, and I'll never forget the conversation that we had when we found him. Uh, he wanted to blame her. He said that she had a miscarriage, or his ex girlfriend had a miscarriage, and she had that to save the family. Which is where I was like, okay, we're high. This is not going to go well. We've got a small child back at the house, and now we're in the middle of the street in front of this trap house. And I'm like, you've got to go. I'm not going to let you back in my house, bro. He started talking about Cubans and a whole mess of other things that just were not reality based at all. Cops were called. And I'm like, yeah, he needs to go. We've got a kid, and he was here under the condition that he would not be doing drugs. Now he's doing drugs, which I know for a fact is civil. But what I wanted was for them to maybe take him to a hotel or something. They didn't, actually. They let us walk off, and we went back to the house, and we started unloading things that are his, about to take it back to her mom's house. And he showed back up, um, threatening uh, us, saying that we're useless and this, that, and the other thing. And did one of those at me. At that point in time, I was positive that one of us is going to get hurt. Me, her, the kid, somebody's going to get hurt, and everybody looks at me for protection. I'm the one that protects people. I can't find adulty or an adult right now. I am it. Uh, my 40 caliber came out quicker than I had anticipated. Um, and in that moment, he's, "What are you gonna do?" I said, "I think you know what I'm about to do. If you don't back out of my personal space, it's gonna happen, and I will not lose one bit of sleep over it, because be it right, wrong, or indifferent, this was my family." So the cops came back. I know you're shocked, and they actually did take him to a hotel. And at this point in time, I'm trying to do everything that I can to just get back to good, to get back to being happy. Um, I love my job, but something's missing, and I don't know what it is. And a month later, it's my birthday. Um, she said she had some errands she's going to run, and she's like, "Hey, I'm going to leave my brother here. Um, don't shoot him." And I said, "What do you mean you're going to leave your brother here? He's not allowed here." I know that because I had my pistol in his face last month. She left him there, and then I realized what it was. Um, there was no respect given to me at all. Here it is on my birthday, and I'm doing the exact opposite of what I wanted to do. I woke up on the couch the next day of my own house on my birthday, because it was actually the day before that this happened. We were supposed to be celebrating it that day. And I realized I can't do this, man. And draining the color out of that photo and understanding emotional attachment, I don't even know who she was. I don't remember when she was the person that I actually fell in love with. I don't even remember what that person looked like. I was just with this person because that's who I'm supposed to be with, and that's what I've always told myself is I'm supposed to be here. And that's all I know. Um and then I left. I didn't even pack. I just called up my nephew. I was like, I need a ride to mom's. I didn't get anything out of that house. Not one thing. 13 years of life and accumulation and knickknacks and stuff that I loved. I just left it there. And I went to my mom and she's like, is it done? And I said, yeah, it's done. But I learned things that last time. That last time in 2012. I don't need her. Shit, I barely like her at this point. So what am I gonna do now? Well, I'm gonna have to get back up on my feet, man. That's the only option. So I worked and ended up getting with somebody else, um, and did the whole thing over again. Um, this time differently. Um, Still wasn't right for me. It wasn't a right fit. But I started to learn the value of intimacy and what intimacy actually means. Um, During the time that I got with her, I wasn't allowed to talk about my divorce that I was going through, um, because we got jealous, um, and it was difficult to go through that. I wasn't allowed to tell. I mean, for 13 years, this person was. Every story started with her name. I wasn't allowed to do that. I learned really quick not to talk about her. And actually, I don't hate that. There's nothing more annoying than being with somebody who just constantly talks about their ex, like in a, I don't know, in a, like a, I miss you sort of way, or what you could perceive as an I miss you sort of way. It's annoying. So I was actually rather appreciative of that portion of it. But the jealousy never went away. Um, I built up a whole nother life with a whole nother house. Um, then I ended up not being able to take her stuff anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. And so I decided what I'm going to do instead of that, is I'm going to start thinking about this a little bit more analytically. I ended up making a checklist of things and not allowing any of the color into the photo first. Number one, I want to be able to talk to the person. I've had horrible days. Um, I've had days where an inmate took a face dive off the second tier, and I held my stuff together until I got home, um, and then I lost it. So I could still hear the sound that he made when he hit that linoleum. I could see the look on everybody's face when they watched it happen. I remember my first decomp body, and I wasn't allowed to vent about that either. Um, I needed to know what kind of a person you are before I end up. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I needed to look at this with no heart. I needed to be able to look at you and evaluate you and know how you react during certain things. And I needed to know whether or not you can handle me because I'm a lot. I'm loud. um, I'm extra. A lot of people call me extra. And I need to know whether or not the next person will be here for the rest of my life because I'm tired of wasting time. Now that I have understood exactly how dark I can get and how wrong I can be, when I fix those issues, I don't want to waste it on somebody else. And then I found her. Um, Nowadays, I'm not a jail administrator. I'm actually working the road, um, which a lot of the things that I learned in the jail applies. I've spoken to several different classes of colleges. Um, I've put on courses for other law enforcement officers. I'm an instructor in several different things. I'm really good at what I do. And I don't think I would have ever been that way had I not walked in the path that I have walked and seen the things that I've seen and done the things that I've done. And it took a lot. And it's hard to reflect. Uh, right now, I'm feeling all kinds of emotional. Um, some of these things I haven't told anybody else. Um, when I look back at that dark point in my life where I was like, yeah, I'm just done with everything. I'm done with it without understanding that the problem was myself. With the exception of my mom, none of those people are even in my life anymore. And because I outgrew them. I've got one person that I wasn't even worth a conversation or even an apology for overstepping boundaries. I've got people that want to throw my past in my face at all times, like I wasn't there when it happened. I was there, and I absolutely hated it. And when they're 42, I'm sure they'll look back at their life and they'll have the same god awful taste I have in my mouth right now, thinking about all the despicable things that they have done to other people. And it's hard, but that's why I wanted to do this podcast too, is because I'm here, and I'm here because there's not another option. In that moment of weakness and that horrible ideology, and I looked around and I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, maybe I should try to be somebody I would date because I wasn't very dateable at that point in time. I was nothing but if you went out with me, you're going to get embarrassed. And I'm just going to giggle and laugh it off. I didn't even care. And luckily, as time went on, I understood I'm not going to have my virtue intact, but I have my honor. I want to be that person that my mom raised me to be. And I've worked very hard to become that person. And if it takes having this past, then I'm going to have it. I do know I'm not wanting in the aspect of life. I've lived it. I've done things and seen things that, good Lord, I wish I could take back. But that's life. And when I get done living life, I'm I'm not gonna have any regrets. I'm not gonna be like, well, what if? Because I did it. Albeit some of the stuff I absolutely hated. I hate some aspects of my past, and like I said, sometimes I wake up and I can't take enough showers. I can't wash it off of me. But it was worth it. Now I've got my own house. I've got my own beautiful family. I've got a wife that I couldn't I couldn't live without. I don't have to question if she's comparing me to other guys. I don't have to worry about her going anywhere because she's here for me and I'm here for her. And it took forever to be able to find that in another human being. And that being said, there's been a lot of dark talk, so I'm going to lighten it up a little bit and I'm going to tell you the story of how I met her. Just because if I don't, I'm going to end up crying. So, if y'all are single, just pop over to the Play app there and download Hinge because it's made to be deleted. And I'm not talking about in a cheating aspect sort of way. It's actually made to be deleted because they're that confident that you're going to find the love of your life, which I thought was absolute. Well, uh, she's the third person. She's like the third or fourth person that I saw her profile of. And on it, she said 6 kids. She had something about books. Can't remember what it was. And a couple profile pictures. And when I wrote her, uh, I asked her, "Is there any movie that's better than the book?" And I got a 3-page dissertation with cover letter, and that's how I knew that one's mine. And so 2 years later, 2 years, 2.5. No, yeah, not quite, almost. Here we are. And all it took was for me to and there it is. There it is. For anybody who needs it. Uh I wish I would have found her earlier, but I also don't because I was a horrible catastrophe of individual. So anyway, it's so weird like being on here with nobody else or nobody talking because it's already been 40 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump off here and planning on maybe getting the first guest. I'm gonna be reaching out and talking to a couple people. Okay. Are you volunteering right now? Okay. Well, we got our first one. I've also got two or three other ones that would also like to hop on here. So we will be coming back at you. I'm not sure if it's next Sunday. I don't know if I'm going to be actually on my regular rotation or not. Um, but I will let you guys know. And thank you guys for listening. And we'll see you next time. So this is Garen with Dark Forge Light. You guys have a beautiful night.